Hey BookTube, it's Samantha and I'm coming to you with a wrap-up video, but I might make additions to it later. I'm filming it on Memorial Day because I'm anticipating the next 3 days are going to be super busy for me and I don't think I'm going to be able to necessarily read anymore. So I figured might as well do my wrap-up now, and if I have to add on to it later, I'll let you know either in this video or maybe even the next video where I'm doing my TBR for the month. I'll probably let you know in that one. So let's get to the books that I actually read for this month. So for the first book this month, I read The Son of Neptune by Rick Riordan. This is book 2 of the Heroes of Olympus series. Now with this book, I actually started it in April, but I didn't finish it until May 5th. Overall, I gave it it was either 4 or 5, because I remember one of the things that I wasn't really caring for with the book was that it seemed to be throwing in a lot of different subplots, and it was really hard for me to keep track of all of the things going on. Another thing that was kind of a bad thing for my reading experience, but maybe not for others, is the fact that it was really hard for me to remember all the events that had happened in the previous series, which is the Percy Jackson series. I was one of those people that did not grow up with the series. I did not read it when I was younger. I read it for the very first time last year. So I've only read those books once, so they're not very fresh in my head like it is for a lot of fans out there. I know there's a lot of people where it's just as dear to their heart as Harry Potter is for me. So I totally get it. When it comes to reading the series though, because I've only read them once, there's a lot of mentions to previous events that have happened in the book or previous characters, and it's like, oh yeah, how did that end up? Someone died, or they didn't really die, or they had this interaction. I couldn't really remember everything. And I feel like if I was more familiar with the books, like people who are super fans of the Percy Jackson series, I would have enjoyed the book even more with all those Easter eggs. So I did enjoy the book as it was, but those are a couple of things that kind of diminished the reading experience for me. The second book that I read was The Chalk Man by C.J. Tudor. And I did a full book review video of this, so make sure to check that out. I'll put the description down below. Overall, I gave this book 3 stars, but I think it was because I had a preconceived notion that it was going to be a supernatural story, and it definitely wasn't. So I think if I had known it wasn't going to be supernatural, I probably would have enjoyed the book more. I feel like it was well written. I was definitely picking up the book and I wanted to read it. I found that the ending was very realistic. I'll leave it there. I don't want to give out any spoilers. But yeah, I think it was just a big deterrent that I thought it was going to be more of a spooky supernatural feel to it, and it wasn't. It wasn't. But anyway, if you like mysteries, I would definitely recommend this book. I felt like it was a really good mystery, and you know, it kept me on my toes. I couldn't really see how the ending was going to be, except for one exception, but I talk about it in my video. I'm not going to talk about it here. So, because it is definitely spoilers. So if you want to know, check out the video. On to the next. So next book that I read was Fear Street Cheerleaders, The First Evil. Now, I had been wanting to read this book forever, and I finally got around to reading it. I did a whole video as I was reading the book, so you kind of read it along with me of my experience of rereading the book. It's definitely dated, but I really enjoyed reading the book even though it was dated. You can check out that video as well. I'll leave it below. Really loved the last half of it because that's what I remember from reading it the first time around. The first half of the book, did not remember at all, and there was a reason why. It was super dated. But the last half, Last half was good. Loved it. So I kind of split my rating for the first half of the book being 3 stars and the last half of the book being 5 stars. So I averaged it out to 4. And then this weekend happened. I read a few books, but it was kind of slow paced. And then I did that short stories video about books that I picked up that I was curious about reading. And I figured, you know what? Why don't I get through that pile? So this weekend was a really big reading weekend for me. Especially if you've been following me on Goodreads or on Twitter, you can see I've been reading a lot of books. So let's get into those books I've read so far. The first one is Revenge by Yoko Ogawa. I have things to say about this because it's right here. 11 Dark Tales, okay? Now, I did not really read the little synopsis here because I find that sometimes it kind of spoils it. But these are not stories that stand alone. You have to read the whole book in order to enjoy it. It's not a short story collection. It is definitely one book with 11 tales that all intertwine together. I went into this thinking, again, here I am assuming, I went in thinking it was going to be 11 short stories that are going to be their individual standalone pieces. And I read the first one and I'm like, okay, and what was the point? So I read the second one and I'm like, okay, I see they mentioned this one detail that relates to the first story, but this is something completely different. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? And then I got to, I was seriously thinking about DNFing it because I was just like, what is this? But then I got to Old Mrs. J, which is the third story. And that one was really good. That one was creepy. I'm like, okay, maybe it's like we're starting to pick up now. And then I read The Little Dust Man. I honestly cannot tell you anything about that story. I don't remember anything. By this point, I saw every story was taking one thing from the previous story and connecting them together. I'm like, okay, but what's the point? Is that your way of tying them all together? Okay. Then the stories that I enjoyed the most, I legit really enjoyed these stories, were Lab Coats, Sewing for the Heart, and Welcome to the Museum of Torture. Those were by far my favorite parts of the book. I'm like, okay, awesome, this is going good. They were creepy stories in and of themselves. I also found that they were connecting a little bit better than the previous stories. I'm like, okay, I like how it's all in the same area. I like how they're all kind of intertwined. I like that. And then we got to The Man Who Sold the Braces and it just started falling apart again. They were all still related, but they weren't creepy. They weren't interesting. And then, it just, they all tie together. And half of this was good, but the other half, I would not read this again. For sure. I would not read it again. I think a book that did this a lot better was The Slade House by David Mitchell. I feel like it was different tales. It didn't advertise it as being multiple stories in it. So that's the first improvement. But then also in Slade House, it's a same situation, but it happens over time. So there's different events going on, different people in each chapter, but they're building off of each other. And the second event kind of builds off of what happened in the first one. And the third one builds off of what happened in the second and first one. So I feel like that book did a lot better job of building off itself rather than this one. It's not a nightmarish book. It's definitely creepy, but not that bad. And also, it's a short book as well. So don't read this. Read Slade House by David Mitchell. Second book I read. I've been starting to work on these puzzles because I have puzzles in my house. I'm like, oh, I totally forgot I had these. And so in my spare time when I'm not wanting to read, I've been working on these puzzles. And I wanted to work on mine, but I wanted to read as well. So I found that You Were Never Really Here was available on audiobook. And it was 2 hours for the audiobook. I'm like, perfect. I'll just listen to the audiobook, and when it's done, then I'll move on to the next thing. I'll spend a couple of hours working on my puzzle. Guys, I think this is the most boring book I've ever read. Ever. And it was even narrated by the author. You would think that if the author was narrating his own book, he would put some enthusiasm, some emotion into his character. But did he do that? No, he didn't. I thought it would be action-packed since it's so small. It was not. For the majority of the book, 99% of this book is just PG. Maybe PG-13 when it comes to the action scenes, but the descriptions are guy shot him in the head, back of the head went out. Shot him in the eye. It's not really gory. So I'm just listening to the book or whatever. And then every one page comes up and he starts talking about how he's wanting to masturbate. And I'm like, it shocked me out of what I was doing because it was so out of nowhere. It totally didn't go with the overall feel of the book. And I was just like, what? Why is he talking about this? Why is this in the book? It was only 2 sentences, maybe 2 or 3 sentences, and it had nothing to do with the plot. Why put it in there? It's so weird. It's so weird. And then towards the very end, he's talking about his wife and how he was putting his mouth on her chest, and that threw me out of the loop because that was a couple of sentences, and that was it. That was it. Out of all this, I would understand if it's throughout the book. One book that I can think of that does that is Blackbirds by Chuck Wendig. I really love that book, but it's definitely consistently foul language, inappropriate content throughout the book because that is appropriate to the character. Here, it just comes out of nowhere. Nowhere. Oh, I just saw here too. Apparently the rating of the movie is R. It's an R-rated movie. And it's probably only R-rated for those 2 scenes that I just talked about. Don't read this. I know it's short, but don't. Don't. So at this point, I've read 2 of these short books. I've got that huge stack of books. I'm like, oh my God, are all of these books not going to be good? Then I read Fever Dream. I enjoyed this. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I enjoyed this. Surreal is a very good way to describe this book. Definitely. It's focused on this woman and this boy who are having a conversation, and the boy is trying to help the woman remember a specific event that's really important. The woman doesn't know why it's important, but she's just going over the events of what have happened to lead up to the current moment. You're just kind of going along for the fever dream. I really like this. It was very easy to read. This is the book where, it's really spaced out and the book is very small. I mean, look, it's the size of my hand, It's a small book. I don't know if there's anything else I could say about it. But I enjoyed this book, for sure. I'd recommend this to anyone who's wanting to have just something easy to read that's enjoyable. Give it a try. If you do give me a try, let me know. I'm really curious about what other people think of this book. And then, as of today, I finished Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. Now, I did a little bit of research on this book because I realized I didn't know anything about it. So I was like, okay, maybe I should learn what this book is actually about. It's Actually written by a German writer who was just contemplating the principles of Buddhism and Hinduism, and he wrote a novel on it. So it has nothing to do with the Buddhist religion necessarily. Like, it's not an equivalent of the Bible, for sure. It's purely fiction. So clarify that from before. But overall, I mean, it's a very short read. I really love this book. It was exactly what my friend described it would be. It made me really think. It's a book that's following this guy named Siddhartha, and he finds that he's not satisfied with the teachings of others. He decides that he is going to be a samana. The book samana. He decides that he's going to be a samana and just live penniless on the streets, and maybe he'll learn the meaning of life and the purpose of life by not having any possessions. So he does that, and then it's just following him and his journey on discovering who his true being is and to find some peace in his life. And I think we can all identify with that. We all want some peace in our life when things seem so chaotic all the time in our world. It was just really enjoyable to read this book. This guy is definitely human. He is just trying to live out his life. I would definitely reread this book. It was, there's a lot of good points in there that just made me really think and contemplate about different things in life. Highly recommend this for sure. It was an easy read too. There are a few words in there that it's just like, I don't really understand what that is, but I'm sure I could just look it up, and I kind of understood from the context of the story too what those words meant. So definitely recommend this. I love this. It was so good. So good. So now I'm going to talk about the books I'm currently reading in case I finish them by the end of the month, because I'm not really sure. One of them that I picked up today was My Sister the Serial Killer, and over a third of the way through. It doesn't help that everything's white, huh? Almost halfway through. This is not what I thought it was. I thought it was going to be kind of a humorous take on a dark subject, but it isn't. It's just following this woman and her sister who has a habit of killing her boyfriends, as it says right here. The sister doesn't really seem to have any emotions. She definitely seems to be like a sociopath, and she's just trying to live her life, and her sister keeps on interfering a little bit more and more into her own life. I don't think this is going to be a favorite. I'm kind of enjoying it. I'm curious how it's going to end up, because obviously, like, I can see what the climax is building up to. That's pretty obvious. I just don't know how it's going to end, so I'm curious about it. And I'm reading pretty quickly through this. I think I've got like an hour and a half left maybe of this book. So I'm going to try and finish this in the next couple days. We'll see what I think. Last night I picked up A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. And in the comments, one of you lovely people had let me know that you had heard it was really sad. And I was just like, okay, well, I'll just get through it really quickly. It looks like it would be a quick read. And I'll just move on to the next one, I wasn't moving through the book as fast as I was wanting to. And then I'm about almost 40 pages in. And I think I know where the book is going, and I'm emotionally not ready to go there. Yeah, this is going to be really hard. You're following this boy who at night he sees this monster outside of his window, and he's trying to figure out what this monster wants from him. And you follow the boy in his everyday life, and his mother is battling cancer, and he gets bullied at school. He doesn't really have any friends because of how much attention he has to put into the care of his mother. I mean, just talking about it, I mean, I think I know where this is going. The artwork is absolutely beautiful. Like, look at that. It's just, it's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous book. I don't want to cry right now. I don't want to cry. You guys don't know, but it's my birthday a week from today. So it's going to be really stressful in the next few days because I'm going on a trip, which keep an eye out for that because I'm going to be doing a vlog of my trip. But I'm leaving Thursday and spending the weekend just having fun, and I don't want this on my mind. I don't want to finish this and then it leaves a lasting impression on me and affects my weekend. I don't need that. I don't need it. I'll read it after my birthday, like the weekend after my birthday when I can cry. But for now, I can't emotionally do this. I will say I love the writing though. The writing style is beautiful. I'm not a person who really likes flowery writing at all, but I love how this is written. I can tell that a lot of care was put into it, and I'm sure I'm gonna love this book. I'm sure I'm going to. I just know that it's also gonna wreck me. Next book that I'm still reading. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this book. I don't know because it's overdue. And that's Donna Tartt, The Secret History. I checked this book out from the library and I renewed it a couple of times before I actually started it. And so on my last renewal, I actually started it and really am enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it, but I'm only like a quarter / a third of the way through the book. And it was due on Saturday. So it's a couple days overdue and I have to turn it in now. So I think what I'm going to try and do is talk to the librarian and be like, hey, here's the book. Can I just recheck it out? Please? I don't know if I can get away with that. We'll find out. But I'm loving this. I'm loving this a lot. You're following this guy and his narration, as you find over time, is not always reliable, which I love as a twist on this. So you're following from his viewpoint, and his viewpoint is the only way you're getting information, but you don't know necessarily if it's 100% accurate. So I love that. But you're following these group of students who are very pretentious and whatnot, and definitely like that Hitchcock feeling of they want to get away with the perfect murder, and you're trying to figure out who did it and what they're going to do about it. Definitely the Hitchcock vibes, as I said before, and I'm just really enjoying this book. It's quite possible, since my birthday's coming up, I might just buy the book because at work, they are so kind. What they do is everyone puts in $5 when a birthday comes up, and they put it all together for a gift card of the person's choice. So obviously I said Barnes & Noble because I rarely go to the bookstore. So I know I have that gift card coming in. So I might just buy this book, and then there's a couple of other books on my mind that I also want to get. I might just do that because obviously I'm loving it. So why not buy it? So that is what I've read so far. I don't think I'm going to get through all 3 of these books by the end of the month. Definitely not Secret History. This one, it takes a long time for me to read. I think to read, I want to say it's like about 1.5 minutes a page. 1.5 to 2 minutes a page. And usually my reading speed's around 1 page a minute. So this is a lot slower to get through, but I enjoy every bit of it. But it's just not going to happen. And then, like I said, Monster Calls, not going to happen this month. But My Sister, the Serial Killer, I'll probably finish that one this month. I feel like I've got a really good reading speed on it. I'm going to post this video tonight. I recorded a video of me setting up my bullet journal for June when it comes to my reading spread, but it was my first time ever doing it. I had this weird ass setup here. I'll show you. So like I was using that light and the money thing to have a stand on it, and then the light, my light stand that I used to record was like in front of me as I'm writing. So I couldn't see the camera, and I found out afterwards that I recorded the video in the wrong orientation. So I'm gonna have to figure out if I can flip it. If you guys know, let me know. I use the iMovie editing. I think I'm gonna try and flip it on my laptop on the iMovie, but yeah. I can't necessarily re-record it because I already made the spread. So I'll see if I'm even gonna come out with that. If I do figure it out, I'll post it for sure. If I don't figure it out, I'll just do the spread for July. So I just kind of want to let you know on that. That's something I have in the works. And I'll see you next time. See ya.